Hello, and welcome to another episode of 8-Bit Monsters Monster Deconstruction for D&D 5th Edition. On today's episode, we're actually going to be doing something a little different. I'd like to call this the Deconstruction in Review, and we're going to take a look back at the monsters I've covered, and review what they look like and how their printed CR value versus the found CR value compares and differs. Now with that little introduction out of the way, let's jump right into this, and we're going to start by looking at the monster, then we'll look at the DCR, followed by the OCR, the FCR, the printed CR, what kind of balance it has, if it's overrated, underrated, or even, and just some quick reminder notes about the monster. So first off, let's take a look at the Bandit, which was the first monster I reviewed many months ago. Now, the Bandit had a DCR of 1/8, its OCR was a 1/4, and at that point for the FCR, I kind of was hemming and hawing back and forth if it was an 1/8 or a 1/4. After looking back at the numbers and coming to terms with how to round up or down the monster's CR rating, I would say that the Bandit's FCR is actually a 1/4 rather than a 1/8 because of the numbers. So with this review, and the printed CR value of the Bandit as a 1/4, we'll find that the balance is actually even here. As for notes, there's really nothing special to talk about. So we can actually just move on from the Bandit and say that the Bandit is a pretty evenly balanced monster and perfectly good for any encounter you want to use bandits. Next, let's look at the Troglodyte, one of my more popular deconstructions. Now for the Troglodyte, the DCR was a 1/8, its OCR is a 1, its FCR is a 1/2, and the printed value is a 1/4. Now I set the balance for this Troglodyte as underrated, and I say that because it's printed at a 1/4, but I found a 1/2, which means it's actually under the capabilities of what the monster is actually doing. And what is it actually doing? Well, it's that third attack that really bumps up the CR for the Troglodyte, making this a much nastier monster for our adventurers to encounter. Next we have the Giant Rat, and this monster's DCR was found at 1/8, its OCR is 1/2, the FCR I found at 1/4, and its printed CR is a 1/8. Again, this is an underrated monster, and not giving out nearly enough XP, just like the Troglodyte as well before it. Now, the thing about the Giant Rat is that it has much higher stats than it should, and this is affecting its overall OCR value, bumping it up into a higher CR rating than it was expected. Next we have the Piercer, and this crazy monster with only one attack has a DCR of 1/8, an OCR of anywhere between 1/4 to 3, an FCR of anywhere between 1/8 to 2, and it's printed at a CR value of 1/2. So is the Piercer a balanced monster? It really depends, and I have to put a question mark here because the monster is highly height dependent on its one attack that it gets. So if the monster's dropping anywhere between, I think it was 20 to 40 feet, it's balanced. But if it's dropping below that or above that range, then it's going to be overrated or underrated. Next we look at the Feathergale Knight that came from the Princes of Apocalypse. And this monster was found to have a DCR of 1/4, an OCR of 2, an FCR of 1, and its printed CR is also a 1. Luckily, is the Feathergale Knight balanced? Yeah, sure is. And there's really nothing special to talk about here besides its wingwear armor? Yeah, that stupid wingwear armor got me in trouble halfway through my video. Next we have the Giant Frog, and another pretty popular deconstruction that I have. The Giant Frog has a DCR of 1/8. Its OCR was found to either be 1/4 or 1/2. Its FCR was found to be either 1/8 or 1/4, and its printed value was 1/4 as well. So is this monster balanced? Well, it's either overrated or even, and that highly depends on whether or not it's fighting small creatures or not. If it's fighting small or tiny creatures, then yes, it's a perfectly evenly balanced monster. Otherwise, it's overrated and being killed off pretty easily because it can't swallow any creatures that are medium or higher. Next we look at the Grey Ooze and its psychic variant. For the Grey Ooze, I found its DCR to be a whopping 0, which was the first time I found that out of all the monsters I deconstructed. Its OCR was either a 1/2 or 1, its FCR was either a 1/4 or 1/2, and its printed CR value was a 1/2. Now, the Grey Ooze is either overrated or even, depending on if it's the Psychic version or if it's the regular version. We found in the video that the Psychic variant was actually technically weaker, but it does get the advantage of having ranged attacks from its Psychic Crush that it gets. So take that as you will. Next is the Goblin, and this was the monster that I deconstructed many years ago before starting videos, and actually kind of spurred this series from what I had found oh so long ago. The Goblin I found to have a DCR of 1, the OCR was also a 1, and the FCR, not surprisingly, was also a 1. Now the thing about this is that the Goblin is a printed CR of 1/4. This monster is highly underrated. This is the biggest underrated monster I've found to date. And why is this the case? Well, it's that sneaky little nimble escape feature that it gets in the trait section. This gives such a huge bonus to the Goblin, it's absurd, with +4 to defenses and +4 to attacks. Yeah, I don't know where that came from, but if you use it as it's intended, this is a gnarly Goblin to deal with. Next we have the Copper Dragon Wyrmling. With this cute little baby Copper Dragon Wyrmling, I found its DCR to be a 1, its OCR to be 1/2 or 3, its FCR to be a 2, and its printed CR to be a 1. Now the wild thing about the Copper Dragon Wyrmling is the balance. For this baby Copper Dragon Wyrmling, if it gets all of its breath attacks, we'll find that this is a very underrated monster. But if it only gets 1 breath attack and a bunch of other melee attacks during combat, then this will be an even rated monster. So the balance is highly dependent on how many breath weapon attacks this dragon can actually get. And lastly, we'll take a look at the Bandit Captain. Now for the DCR, I found this to have a 2, the OCR is a 3, and the FCR when rounded up is also a 3. The printed value is a 2, which means this Bandit Captain is also underrated. The reason it's underrated is if the Bandit Captain happens to go into melee more or less right from the start, this is going to increase the amount of damage that the Captain can put out, and overall increasing the CR value from a 2 that is printed to a 3 that I found. So let's take a look at our totals of even, over, or underrated monsters. For even monsters, I found 3 of the 10 to actually be even and perfectly balanced. For overrated monsters, I found 2 out of 10 being overrated and giving less XP than they should be given out. For underrated monsters, I found 4 out of 10 to be underrated and not giving enough XP out, especially in the case of the Goblin. And there is just one question mark monster, and that's the Piercer. It really depends on where that monster's dropping from. Thank you as we took a look at the deconstruction in review of the last 10 monsters over the months. Join us again next week as we continue our regular scheduled deconstructions. If you've been enjoying these videos, I would really appreciate it if you would share these videos with your friends, your D&D groups. Shoot, if you play Pathfinder or Call of Cthulhu or any other TTRPG, consider sharing it with them. I would really appreciate it, and it could help the channel grow. Until next time when we deconstruct another monster from D&D 5th edition, take care everyone, and I'll see you next time.